Okay, help me or just listen to me talk through the books I should purchase with some credits I have on Shmamazon. Also, don't mind all the flyaways. I have a ceiling fan on, I have a floor fan on, because it's humid and hot in Florida. And we're doing our best to survive without running the AC all the live long day. So enjoy the little show here. But I have 22 books that are in the running to be purchased. I'm not getting them all. I wheedled it down from 40. And I have a $20 ebook credit for purchasing a new Kindle that I purchased with Amazon gift cards and leftover holiday money. And I have $10.75 in credits for choosing slower shipping. So in total, I have $30.75. And my strategy is choosing cheaper books so I can get the most for my money. And some of these books have been on my list to read for over a decade. So I will go over the books a little bit and the price, and feel free to drop a comment of like, ooh, that sounded good. And then once I make my purchase, I'll let you know what I ended up getting. And I know I still have to show off my new Kindle. I still haven't like programmed it yet because I'm not reading anything. I'm reading a physical book right now, but that's neither here nor there. Okay, the first is a series. I would get them both because there's only 2 in this series, and it is a Golden Girls cozy mystery. I like Golden Girls. So the first is Murder by Cheesecake by Rachel Ekstrom Courage, and the second one is Death on the Lanai by the same author. And it's just a little mystery involving the girls. One book is $5.99 and the other book is $9.99. So like I said, I would just count that as like one purchase because those are the only 2 in the series. Then we have The Mad Wife by Megan Church. It says Lulu Mayfield has spent the last 5 years molding herself into the perfect 1950s housewife. Despite tragic memories that haunt her, the weight of exhausting expectations, she keeps her husband happy, her household running, and her gelatin salads the talk of the neighborhood. But after she gives birth to her second child, her carefully crafted life begins to unravel. And they compare it to The Bell Jar and The Hours, and I enjoyed The Hours, which is probably why this made its way onto my list. And it would be $3. So that's a contender. This one sounds interesting. Curses and Other Buried Things by Caroline George. It says 7 generations of women in Susanna Prather's family has been lost to the Georgia swamp behind her house. The morning after her 18th birthday, she awakens soaked with water with no memory of sleepwalking. No matter how she tries to stop it, she's pulled from her safe bed at night, night after night, haunted by her own family history and legacy. What is that about? There's, like I said, there's way more synopsis to read, but I'd be here forever. I love me a good generational story, so that's why this is in the running. And it would be $7.99. I have my laptop behind my phone, so that's why I'm doing this type of thing. Now, this one is a young adult book, and it's apparently book 1 of 2, but I think it could be read as a standalone. I have not investigated the other book in the series. Let's look at it right now. You're watching me live. Oh, so the second book would also be $8.99. So maybe I would get them both. But the one that caught my eye is called The Davenports by Crystal Marquis. The Davenports are one of the few Black families of immense wealth and status in a changing United States. Their fortune made through entrepreneurship of William Davenport, a formerly enslaved man who founded the Davenport Carriage Company years ago. Now it's 1910, and the Davenports live surrounded by servants, crystal chandeliers, and endless parties, finding their way and finding love, even when they're not supposed to. I have no idea what the second book is about, so we're not going to get into that. But it's $8.99, and its sequel is $8.99. I don't know, just sounded intriguing. I don't see many people of color holding such rank in society in historical fictions very often in my travels of reading. So that's why that caught my attention. Then we have That Camden Summer by Lavyrle. It's Lavyrle Spencer. Now, I read some stuff from her in my teens, and that's probably why this has been on my list forever. So I'd be curious if it's still held up to what I enjoyed in my late teens, early 20s. But it's 1916, and Roberta Jewett is surprised to find that her new hometown of Camden, Maine, considers a divorced woman little more than a prostitute. Condemned by her mother and scorned by neighbors, she nonetheless perseveres in her struggle to forge a good life for her girls and herself. Behaving like no respectable woman would, she gets a job as a county nurse, learns to drive, and buys her own very Model T. This does sound like a Hallmark movie, but I would be curious to see if I liked it, and it would be $7.99. Okay. The next one is The Forgotten Seamstress by Liz Trenau. In the early 20th century, Maria knows that as a shy girl with no family, she's lucky to have landed in the sewing room of the royal household. Before World War I casts its shadow, she catches the eye of the glamorous and intense Prince of Wales. But her life takes a dark turn, and soon all she has left is a fantastical story about her time at Buckingham Palace. So the book does some decades later, decades back type of traveling, and that would be $9.99. I don't know. What the Lady Wants, a novel of Marshall Field and the Gilded Age by Renee Rosen. The night of the Great Fire, as 17-year-old Delia watches the flames rise and consume what was the pioneer town of Chicago, she can't imagine how much her life, her city, and her whole world are about to change. Nor can she guess that the agent of that change will not simply be the fire, but more so the man she meets that night. That would be $4.99. All right, we're halfway there. Does this need to be a part 2, or are we just going to hang out together? All right, we have The Map Maker's Children by Sarah McCoy. When Sarah Brown, a daughter of abolitionist John Brown, realizes that her artistic talents may be able to help save the lives of slaves fleeing north, she becomes one of the Underground Railroad's leading map makers, taking her cues from the slave quilt codes and hiding her maps within her paintings. As the country steers towards civil war, Sarah faces difficult sacrifices that could put all she loves in peril. And that would be $8.99. Sorry, the video gave out, my phone alarm went off. But we were starting with now The Book of Lost and Found by Lucy Foley. From London to Corsica to Paris, 2 captivating love stories unfurl in this captivating novel from a New York Times best-selling author as a young woman pursues the truth about her late mother. Kate Darling's mother, a once famous ballerina, has passed away, leaving Kate bereft. When her grandmother falls ill and bequeaths to Kate a small portrait of a woman who bears a striking resemblance to Kate's mother, she uncovers a mystery that may upend everything she thought she knew. Now, this reminds me of a book I read this year called When We Meet Again, which is about a mysterious portrait that a person gets who resembles her grandmother. And it takes place in 2 different times, and they find who they are, all this stuff. So this kind of reminds me of that, and I can't tell if I like that or not, but it is $6.99. Then we have The Observations. Bessie Buckley, the novel's heroine, is a cynical, wide-eyed, and tender 15-year-old Irish girl who takes a job as a maid in a once grand country house where all is not as it seems. Asked by her employer, the beautiful Arabella, to keep a journal of her most intimate thoughts, Bessie soon makes a troubling discovery and realizes that she has fled her difficult past only to arrive in an even more disturbing present. That's all very vague, but that would be $4.99. The Color of Secrets by Lindsay Jane Ashford. In the midst of the Second World War, Eva receives the devastating news that her husband is missing and presumed dead. Neither wife nor widow, she lives in a numb state of limbo until, in the heat of an English summer, she meets Bill, a Black American GI. And despite their vastly different backgrounds, neither can deny the love that overcomes them in the frantic weeks that follow, when every day could be their last. And that would be $5.99. We're almost there. Thank you for sticking around. A Love Most Dangerous by Martin Lake. I think that's the first male author I've said. Interesting. As a maid of honor at the court of King Henry, beautiful Alice Petherton receives her share of admirers, but when the powerful, philandering Sir Richard Rich attempts to seduce her, she knows she cannot thwart his advances for long. She turns to the most powerful man in England for protection, the king himself. This feels very Philippa Gregory, the other Boleyn Girl author, which is probably why this made its way on my list, because I enjoy her books. This would be $3.99. We have Sing for Us. This one is another strange one. If I recall how I felt when I read the synopsis. Sing for Us by Stephen Wise, another male author in this long list of female authors. During the dying days of the Civil War, Letha Bartlett lovingly tends to the wounded in a Confederate hospital in Richmond, Virginia. A widow herself, her gentle touch and fiercely protective personality brings comfort and courage to the soldiers in her care. When Granville Pollard, a Northerner who spurned his Union father to fight for the Confederacy, enters the ward, Letha is captivated by his cultured bearing and singing voice. Granville has lost both his fiancée and his feet to the war, leaving him emotionally and physically crippled. I don't know. That would be $2.99. Loving Eleanor. This one's pretty high for me. This one I have wanted to read for a while. By Susan Wittig Albert. When AP political reporter Lorena Hickok, or Hick, is assigned to cover Eleanor Roosevelt in the 1932 campaign, the two women become deeply involved. Their relationship begins with mutual romantic passion, matures through stormy periods of enforced separation and competing interest, and warms into an enduring, encompassing friendship documented by 3,300 letters. And this would be $5.99. We have One Lavender Ribbon by Heather Birch. Reeling from a bitter divorce, Adrian Carter abandons Chicago and retreats to the sun, sand, and beauty of southern Florida. Anything in South Florida makes me chuckle. Throwing herself into the restoration of a dilapidated old Victorian beach house. I want to know where in southern Florida this is. Early into the renovations, she discovers a tin box hidden away in the attic that reveals the emotional letters from a World War II paratrooper to a young woman who lived in the house more than a half a century earlier. I just got questions about the location mainly. This would be $4.49. The Vow, a novel by Felicity Goodrich. It happens in the chill of a September night of 1939. Their small Polish village is raided, burned to the ground. Anna, a devoutly Catholic teenager, watches as her friend is shot and as her father is dragged off for the conscription in the German army. Sisman? I'm not sure. The young village priest stands silently with his parishioners as their church is ransacked and torched. Anna clings to him, her dear friend and confidant, and by some luck, the Germans spare them. And that one would be $1.49. I don't know where they come up with these prices. Now, apparently it says Forgotten Actress Book 1. I don't know if it means this book has a sequel or it's just a series and they're all standalone books. but this is called The Forgotten Flapper, a novel of Olive Thomas by Lainey Giles. A presence lurks in New York City's New Amsterdam Theater when the lights go down and the audience goes home. They say she's the ghost of Olive Thomas, one of the loveliest girls who ever lit up the Ziegfeld Follies and the silent screen. From her longtime home at the theater, Ollie's ghost tells her story from her early life in Pittsburgh to her tragic death at the age of 25. Ooh. And this would be $2.99. We have three more. Whistling Women by Kelly Romo. Life went terribly wrong for Addie Bates in San Diego. Sorry, it cut out again. Another phone alarm went off. I have a lot of alarms on my phone. We'll start over. Life went terribly wrong for Addie Bates in San Diego, and she's been running from those memories ever since. For 15 years, the Sleepy Valley Nudist Colony has provided a safe haven for Addie to hide from the crime she committed. But when the residents pack up to go on exhibit at the 1935 World's Fair in San Diego, Addie returns and must face the thrilling yet terrifying prospect of reuniting with her estranged sister Wavy. What's going on? This would be $3.99. Oh, and that's it. The other two windows I have up don't have anything to do with this. So that's it. That's all there is. I don't know. I got a few that are like, I think I'm going to go with these. But like I said, I have $30.75 to work with. And like $3 of it expires in like 2 days. And I still have another month for the e-credit for getting the Kindle. But I want to use it all up and not have like just pennies left over that I can't use towards anything. So thanks for sticking around for this video. If anything sounded good to you, let me know, but I will follow up once I make my purchases and let you know what won out. All right, let me know if you've purchased any books lately, be it physical or an ebook. And yeah, until next time, happy reading. Bye.